We're done.
Okay. Uh-oh. And as you can tell, we now coordinate our outfits. That is now live on TV. Thank you. So we are being recorded, just so everyone knows. And so this is available for folks. So we will call to order the Business Retention Standing Subcommittee of Tuesday, December 10th, 2019. Welcome, everyone. I'm Jeff Coors, Mayor, and Mayor Pro Tem Christy Holstedge is with me. And we run this for those who haven't been here, and there are a couple of folks who haven't, a little more informally. So although public testimony is on agenda items only, and then at the end we do it on non-agenda items, you also can talk when we're meeting on the agenda item, so it's not like a council meeting where we can't engage. So if you have something on agenda items that you want to say now, great. If not, you can save it for when we're actually talking about the item. So with that, if you have something on agenda items.
I have some non-agenda items that I wanted to address today. One is that I was under the impression that...
That's at the end, although if you'd really like to do it now, you can. Okay, with that, and I actually forgot, since there are a couple...
What you just said while I was reading.
Yes, it's okay. Since there are a couple people who haven't been here before, can we just go around with introductions as well?
Patrick Tallarico, manager of the Office of Sustainability.
Jocelyn Kane, CV Can.
David Feltman, Vacation Rental Owners and Neighbors.
Hit the button when you speak. We heard you, but so it's recorded.
David Feltman, Vacation Rental Owners and Neighbors.
Bruce Hoban, Vacation Rental Owners and Neighbors of Palm Springs.
Keep it pushed, huh? No, you don't. Cindy Karen, Special Assistant to City Manager.
Dave Powell, Executive Director, Desert Business Association.
David McCammon, Division Clothing, Arenas District.
Dean Levine, Arenas District and Black Book.
Jeff Jones, Palm Springs Chamber of Commerce.
Joy Meredith, Main Street, Palm Springs, Crystal Fantasy, and Joy of Life.
Oscar Chamudes, Destination PSP.
Jeffrey Bernstein, Destination PSP.
Julie Martanti, PSA Organica, 420 Lounge, and soon to be 420 Lounge and Bank.
Jay Verrata, City of Palm Springs, Community and Economic Development.
Amy Blaisdell, City of Palm Springs, Public Information Officer.
Flynn Fagg, Planning Director.
Mary Jo Ginther, Palm Springs Bureau of Tourism.
Gil Estrada?
It needs to be green.
Gil Estrada, the Director of Building and Safety.
Harold Ames, Human Rights Commission.
Matt Robinson, resident.
We're going to have the parking lot now.
Get everybody.
I'm David Reddy, City Manager.
Why, thank you. Who needs it?
Terrific. So let's move through the agenda. We'll start with program updates, and I think this will be Jay, right?
Actually, why don't we kick this off with Patrick Tallarico on an update on the bike share RFP, and there's some notes in your package on this.
Thank you. So I just wanted to update folks on the bike share RFP that you had talked about a few months ago, I think. There was an RFP that was issued on October 14th. Responses were due this past month, and we sent the RFP directly to about 5 companies. I think there may have been a 6th in there as well. We got 1 response back, and 2 companies did respond to us and said that they weren't responding because they wanted to propose a multimodal approach, not just bike share. So with regard to the 1 response that we did receive, we were impressed by the company's experience. They had a lot of experience in various cities, various locations, and various different types of programs. They did seem to understand what we were looking for in general in terms of a bike share program. They also interestingly offered a variety of different bikes that could be in the mix, including 3-wheeled bikes and 2-wheeled bikes and different forms of 2-wheeled bikes. And the thing that was most notable about the proposal is that it's based on a sponsorship model. So in addition to charging riders for rides, it also brings in sponsors to fund like signage on the bikes themselves and around the bike and on their kiosks in terms of their bike docking stations. And so they basically make up the revenue that they lack from the rentals through the sponsorship program. So therefore, they're able to have a more even kind of distribution of bikes throughout a program. They're not as dependent on ridership for income. They depend more on sponsorship. There was no revenue sharing proposed in the proposal. We had asked for them to describe that if they had that. The other thing that they did not include was any sort of discount program for seniors or veterans or low income. So they did not have that as part of their package. And then just in terms of the technical components, they basically were proposing a bike share system that was docked to their docking stations as well as could be docked to other places in addition to that. So you could dock them on city property, city bike racks only, or you could park them to basically anything stationary. So we could work with them to define where we wanted the bikes and how we wanted them handled. They did have a system whereby people could report concerns about abuses or vagrant bikes or abandoned bikes, but it was only really a 8:30 to 6 p.m. operation. So after hours, people would just leave a message on a machine and then they would deal with it in the morning. The other thing to note is that their rebalancing program only occurred during the daytime. So as bikes moved around during the day, they would reposition them, but at night, as bikes were used, they would basically be left wherever they ended their ride. So those are some of the big things. And then I know that safety was a big concern with regard to the scooters. And so we asked them about safety programs, and they didn't mention any helmet programs in their proposal, but we did ask them to follow up with us to describe more about some of the helmet incentive programs that they have. And they do have, they do promote helmet use through their web application or their phone application, as well as establishing partnerships with some of the local businesses to have them available, and then people can also write to them and get a discounted helmet as well. So anyway, so these you have programs that they could put in place to help promote helmet use as well. They did.
So if I could,
yes.
just to sort of sum up, so we did an RFP, we got 1.
Yep.
The question is it actionable to come to council for approval?
Right.
My sense is what some guidance we would want from the subcommittee is what? So there's no cost to the city, right?
Well, so
They have to do the sponsorship.
So they have to do the sponsorships that sound like in cooperation with us. And then it was slightly
Well,
unclear.
let me just
Yeah.
preface this. What the procurement director has indicated is that we can brief you on the information. We can't name the company.
Can't name names.
You can guess the company, but we can't name the company. And so we will do that later after we decide if we're going to finalize the bid process. Okay, so that being said, go ahead.
Sure. So in terms of the cost to the city, so I believe that there would be some expenditures in terms of staff time helping them secure the sponsorships. It was also a little unclear in terms of the infrastructure costs, whether there would be cost to the city to help them establish their own bike stations. And then we would probably have to work with them a fair amount to identify bike racks that we would want to allow people to park at if we wanted to pursue that.
Was
that
it motorized
approach.
bikes as well?
So they do have electric bikes in their stable of bikes to be offered. So we could probably negotiate with them on the types of bikes that they had available. So.
Great, and thank you for this. Sure. I have a couple questions. So the first is, do they say how many docking locations they would be providing?
No.
That would be a conversation?
Yes.
Okay. Because, one thing we need to take into account, I think, as we discuss it, is we do have bike stores that rent bikes, and we don't give anything to. And so we have to think about how we're impacting those. The benefit of bike share, which is fine, if competition's fair, it's all good, is that people can take them from one place, leave them somewhere else, if they're setting up a whole network. And last time we talked to a company, which I want to ask you if it's the same one, they wanted to do it with us in Cathedral City. So it really started making sense to have a big bike share program where people could return it, take it at their hotel, come downtown, return it, and maybe take, a Uber or Lyft back to their hotel or whatever it might be, or people could use it for work or things like that. So that would be something I think we need to work out before we're ready to bring it to council, in my view. I think, and we want to talk to our local bike companies. I think there's a ribbon cutting for another one coming. So, that we want to be really conscious of our local businesses as well. The other question is when you mentioned, it could be left at any stationary location that we agreed to. Based on the council's meeting when we talked about scooters, my guess is that would be none. And make sure they're clear with that they probably need to be dropped at specific docking stations.
Right. So the only thing that,
I know you.
yeah, I mean, I think there's variations of this. So you could do just their stations and certain public bike racks. So we could identify some, maybe not all of them.
Right, and then they pick them up?
They could geolocate them and then, and then they would pick them up and
rotate
rebalance
them out?
them.
Okay. And then as far as helmets, because you have to wear a helmet under a certain age in California, and if the city's providing anything, I'd be concerned about liability, so that would be something we just need to look into, and how we're going to regulate that they're actually complying with California helmet law if they have no way to provide a helmet at the spot. Now, if the bike sharers are in front of businesses or hotels that they are willing to partner with in some way, that store the helmets and get some fee, that might be a way around that. But I want to make sure we're looking into that as well. So those are things that jump out from this. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I think this is a journey. This is exactly 1 year for the Festival of Lights since the birds descended on Palm Springs. So I was thinking about that when we had our parade. So here we are. So the city council decided not to allow a pilot program for scooters, but to do an RFP for a bike program to see what interest there was. So I know we've never had this before, to be able to get interest for a bike share program. So I think it's really exciting with more information about what that would actually look like and where it would be located. I think it could be a really good amenity for residents and visitors to get to businesses and work and where they need to go. Is it 18 years or older? I remember the scooters was 18 years or older and you had to have an ID and scan it. Is it that type of technology where you have to log in and it's through an app and they're collecting that information?
That is a good question. I don't know if they have an age limit or if they stated an age limit. I can check on that.
That would be helpful
Yeah.
because I think that was the concern with scooters and helmets. Is the age, and I remember some of the companies would actually scan, you were required to scan your driver's license. So that would be good to know. I'd also like to know if they're collecting data, or if they have data on similar programs in similar cities, so we could know. It'd be interesting to know, is this what percentage is tourists and residents, and sort of what that looks like, the use. I know some of the cities are moving away from docking. There's just an article this week, I think, that one city is abandoning their bike share program because of the cost. So just looking at, I think this is where the market was, and thinking through like where it's going to be in 5 to 10 years, so that we don't have excessive bikes. But I think it's really exciting overall, and I would love to see it come to council for a full community discussion based on your points after we have kind of those answers.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. One is, can technology stop them at sundown?
Stop them at sundown?
Yeah, I mean, we have a dark city, so at night, can you stop it when sun?
I think they can. So they control the locking mechanism. So that's how they basically get the bike, is that you unlock it with your phone essentially, and then the bike lock retracts into the bike. And so I assume that they could not allow you to do that at a certain point.
Well, I mean, among other things, I think that would be, especially for tourists who may not realize that there's not a lot of street lights in places. And then the other question is about the stations that they're asking for the city to provide docking stations on city land. And then they're going to sell sponsorships on those. So I think that would just be an issue as to, is that signage, is that what their business model is to?
Yes, that's their business model.
So to get city land and sell sponsorships on it?
Yep.
So, I mean, I think that's another big question. I've been to big cities that have bike share programs that are great and as an alternative to public transportation, and we don't have a lot of great public transportation for everybody, but signage on city-sponsored sites is an issue, I would think.
And just on that, I think if you see, there are banks who sponsor them. I've seen it in a couple of big cities. And they're usually also more on the bikes, so they have something, but it's, in the case of Citibank, there's City Bike Share. Right. And that's how they're able to fund it, right, to make it work as a model. So, and that's, and that would be part of the conversation, of course, we'd have to have, and how much support they want. Give me a list of, business entities that have business licenses in the city that's public, or, those kind of contacts anyone can get, and we could make it easy for them. If they want us to sit down and have meetings and ask people to give money to them, that's a different situation. So we need drill down a little more on what they expect from the city as far as that.
Can I ask one question? Because I do really want to understand. What would make this 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. business be any different than the brick and mortar business that there is now? What makes it different, other than the fact that they get special opportunities here, possibly sponsorship, signage sponsorship? What makes that different than the people that already have been in business for 15 years downtown that rent bikes? Right. Please explain that.
I'm good to go. So the way bike share works, at least in the places where I've used it, is you can pick it up, as I sort of said earlier, right? If you're staying at the Ace, right, and there's a docking, there's, the bikes are there, you can pick it up there. You can ride downtown. You could drop it at a different dock. You can have lunch. You can have 3 drinks. You can take a lift back to your hotel. So people who commute use them a lot in those cities because we don't have great public transportation. So, if let's say a lot of them are on various places on Palm Canyon, just for an example, and you live close enough to walk to one, you can get a bike, ride to work, you're done with it for the day, and then you pick another one back or another way home. So it's meant not to be you're picking it up and dropping it off at the same place. They're really designed to let you go to different places, which is why when we first talked about it, we talked with Cathedral City, right? And seeing this as more of a valley-wide thing, so people could actually go and then they drop off a bike, as opposed to picking up, dropping it off, and you're riding it for the day for fun. Right? It's used a lot more in those cities, some for that purpose, but also a lot for people as a mode of transportation to getting to and from work, and not driving to work, and not, taking up parking spots from other people, we want to have them. So that's the idea of bike share. Whether it makes sense if it's just in Palm Springs and who's going to use it is the data I think you were asking for, and I think we'd want to have. Because it's not meant to take away from those businesses, although obviously there'll be some competition on that, but it's really meant for pickup and drop off, at least in my experience when I've used them.
Thank you.
So question, this was sent to establish, the RFP was sent to established bike share companies already? Was there anyone local, or was there consideration of even trying to send it out to some of our current bike companies, whether they're motorized or not?
I don't believe that we'd send it directly to any local businesses. Was one business that does have a presence here in Palm Springs, but it also has a presence elsewhere. They don't have any, I don't think they have a business here in Palm Springs yet, but they do have a presence here. And they are one of the ones that said that they were not responding because it was not multimodal. So,
Because that's just one of the things that we're working with so many of our other small businesses now. Is there an opportunity there, opportunity to develop that, not so much to say that not trying to make it even for everyone, but we have, 2 new ones that popped up over the last week or two, or couple months that came in. Is there opportunity to do that, to at least send it out to them, let them have the opportunity to find out, and who knows if they even pulled their efforts to create a program that could be something local to our own community.
I know we put this out for an RFP, but before we decide, it would be good to have a conversation with our local bike stores who rent bikes to see, is this something you may never have done it? Is this something you're interested in before we proceed and bring this to council? We want to reach out to you. I think that was a really good idea.
Or they may even be able to partner with these larger companies to do the local stuff.
If I may, I would be very concerned too about where we put these stationary racks and not take up parking downtown. As you know, we have, a limited amount as there is on the curb. And when you go to New York, it's wonderful there where there's residential blocks and there's 250 bike racks that took up, say, 25 parking spots. And they are empty by 8 a.m. because they all go to the business districts. And I'm not sure how it's going to work here, but I would hate to see those parking spots taken up.
Do you have enough from us?
Sure.
David, is that good?
Thank you.
Okay.
So the next item that I want to talk with regard to the project programs is the business-friendly processes. And so Flynn and Gil, could you come up? We got 2 seats here for this item. Just want to give you an update of where we are. I would note that we took a field trip today to Riverside to their one-stop shop. Christy had asked us to do that, which we did, and I'll let the mayor can comment on that. It was actually a very, very, very good trip, but the mayor will comment on that, but I will let you know where we are in a couple items. One, the whole IT thing that's going to drive all the permitting and everyone talking together in terms of how we do it in-house and then with residents. It was called the ERP system. Council has funded that. We're well down the road. We've chosen it. We're well down the road to get that implemented. It's just a time thing now, and that's probably a year away before it's finally everything is up and running and implemented. But that's underway.
Can you briefly explain what it is?
The ERP, and actually, go ahead, Flynn. You know that better than I.
What we're looking at is a citywide electronic software system that will be the basis for which we issue permits. So we'll be able to issue building permits, planning entitlements, business licenses, all through the same system. What it will allow us to do eventually is to go to a completely online service so that you no longer need to come down to the city in order to get a business license or to pull a permit, that you can submit your applications and your documentation online. We can review it electronically and approve it as such. You can pay for it online, et cetera, et cetera. So what it will do is assist us in being much more efficient in terms of the process of issuing permits and granting entitlements.
So that's underway. The other one was the idea that projects going between planning commission and architectural review. Council's given us direction to limit that. Now, Flynn, you think that you'd prefer to have a zone change on that?
Well, actually, what we can do is we can amend the bylaws for both our Architectural Advisory Committee and our Planning Commission, and I can take that to them in the month of January. What we will do is limit the number of times that applications go back to both groups in order to shorten the timeframes for doing that. Other things that we'll look at over the coming year is the types of items that go forward to either Planning Commission or City Council. By having more things approved at a lower level, either at a staff level or at the Planning Commission level, that also helps us to reduce times in looking at entitlements and reviewing entitlements.
And that's one of the things that they talked about today in Riverside.
Exactly.
Now, you need to amend the zoning code for a couple of those things.
Yes, for the other changes relative to the uses and things like that, we'll need to amend the zoning code.
Okay.
Sure, just on that piece, and I think from the discussion on council, and as you're looking at it and talking with planning and AAC, I know some have different views, from public testimony, is, if the applicant wants to continue working with them, that's fine, but the applicant should have the right to say, I want an up or down vote, and we can appeal it to the next level instead of tabling. It's the tabling that is what I hear the most. So if something gets tabled twice, and you have 2 months, that's more expensive than any fees we charge, right? The time is money for these projects is a huge factor. So as you're looking at what those final rules are, I just want to sort of keep that in mind. And something else we got to talk about today, but is really looking at when and where we require CUPs, because I think we're, by the time you're done, it's $8,000 if you do it all on your own. And for a new small business, that's prohibitive for some. And we've talked, the list is outdated, and I know when you have a breath, or if we can get Flynn more staff, as we're going to talk about at some point, to be able to really update and simplify those. We talked about other changes, I think, recently at council, no tattoo or piercing parlors, in our central business district. That was 50 years ago. So really thinking, I know we did a big update, which helped us get a grocery store downtown, so it was great. But I think we just need the next level, just to keep on your list would be great. And just want to share that with folks, yeah.
And a couple other items, highlighting the pre-application review process. Now, that's with both planning and building. I don't know how many times you've utilized that, but that is in place now, correct?
We do have a voluntary system where applicants can request to go through a pre-application process. As we learned today from our visit with the city of Riverside, that's been something that's been very critical in terms of being able to get projects through a process more quickly.
So I think maybe we ought to look at formalizing that in some way. So that would be the next piece of that. And then finally, the other is with the on the building side. So council has approved the third plans examine inspector, supervisor.
Supervisor.
So we've been recruiting. We've had some trouble getting recruitment on that. We're narrowing in on it. We've got some applicants. But what that's going to be, along with the third permit center technician, which will be coming to council as a new position, those two will allow us to keep more plans examining in-house. But I think what we need to explore, particularly after today, is and again, I'll let you do the numbers, but if doing these two things allow us to keep the 40% in and 60% out, what will it take to keep 80% in and only 20% out? And will that pay for itself when we think it will, and does it make sense to do it? So that needs to be part of our continuing discussion. But council did approve the third supervisor, and what will be going to council in the next two meetings is both the third permit center technician and the concierge position, which will benefit both sides. So those are the positions. The other interesting thing we saw today was the lobby modifications so it's more user-friendly. We've got to bring business license over here, and those kinds of improvements were certainly eye-opening today.
Yeah, and I think it'd be great if when we get the notes set up for that we put that on our next agenda to go through what we learned today. Riverside probably now has considered the best process of probably any city. They're a lot bigger in the country, and they spent probably the last 2 years getting there. But you walk in, you feel like you're going, I get in trouble when I name brands, but into certain stores, and it just feels so welcoming, and Everyone's there, and they just have sped up the process so dramatically through things they've done and figuring out what we can implement, and talk about at the next meeting. But on staffing there, David, I think the other, one other thing, on the concierge position, and just so we're clear on it, it can be someone who can help direct people when they're there, but also help people through the process, right? So, I think one of the frustrations I hear from some businesses is they thought they submitted everything they needed to, and then, they wait and they haven't, or their plumber or architect hasn't, and they didn't know that until then they're, how we have a little hand-holding, I guess, or at least, and I know once it's online, it'll be a lot easier, but figuring out if that position can help people who don't know the process also get through it a little bit.
So for example, everything should have a checklist,
Right.
right?
Yes, that's what we talked
Whether it's a
about.
water heater or a house edition, checklists.
Right.
And, yeah.
Or opening a business. What do you need? You need a, business permit. You need this. What businesses need a CUP? Just so people know the full process they need to go through. And I know we have some of that, but in a way that, we can coordinate and just help folks make it easier.
So those were the things for these two gentlemen. The only other I would note is, as part of this business friendly, if you want to include the Buxton, update them on the Buxton portion of this, which is the information which is going to benefit everyone.
Right. So we have started the process with Buxton Retail Analytics. It's the firm we hire to help businesses market themselves better, help us to bring businesses into the challenged areas of the city, and to get more data on the visitors coming to the city. So one of the things we wanted to talk to everyone about is this product that they have called Local Store Marketing, LSMX. And you could check it out by going to mylsmx.com. And that'll give you an idea of what their services can do for you. And just to describe it really quickly, you put in a description of your business. Their software and analytics will identify potential customers who actually live in the community. Red dots will appear on your screen where there's potential customers. And you can draw a circle around the ones you'd like to capture and get a sense of how many are out there that are your customers. And then with a few more presses of your mobile device, you can be launching social media ads on Facebook or Instagram or through email to market your products.
So Jay, when is that available to them with passwords, and then how do we train everyone, and when are we training everyone to do that?
It is available now. I would have to assign license numbers to each individual interested.
So where we are, we have a limited number of licenses. Now, it's going to be available to everyone in one of a couple ways. Where, for example, you could come into City Hall, sit down at our computer, get the information you want. That's one way to do it. The other way, you said it's about 20 licenses. We could provide licenses to each business organization, and then you can utilize it how you want. Those are the details that need to be worked out.
I think also, we could have each library have a license so people can go in there and request it, and someone could log them on so they can use it. And I think we need to do a couple trainings, sort of maybe morning, evening, and a weekend day for folks. It is pretty intuitive, but I think having someone, they said they would come and do the trainings for us, so we should take them up on that and figure out sort of our PR effort to let the business community know this is available for them. When the trainings are, mail to everyone with a business license and really help promote this, because it's a great tool, but it's only a great tool if people know about it and can use it.
I wonder if the chamber might have a permit or a license to help businesses, so.
Yeah, I think the thought is like every business organization, every one of the merchant organizations, so the chamber, Main Street, et cetera, Arenas, DBA, the business organizations would have a license, so their membership could use them.
I haven't seen it, sorry. Do you have like an account and your information of what you're using it for is on there or stays on, or you just disappears?
Yes, you would have an account. Or for the city licenses, we would simply delete the information, input a type of business if we're sitting down with a customer, and this could be Main Street, it could be the Chamber, and then input that business's information, and then find out where the customer potential is in the city, what it is. I do want to say, it would be on the business to pay for those social media advertisements, but at least it's available.
But no, I think, Jeff, I think your point is
I have a question, though,
different.
because when this was presented, it was going to be open to
Right.
everybody to use. Going and using a thing like this for marketing and then wiping out everything after you use it is not really how
Right.
you would market your business. You would keep an account with all of your information there, and I
Right, use it
believe- I
regularly.
haven't used it yet, but,
Right.
when I do Facebook ads, so I have an account and I can see all my history and what worked and what not,
Right.
and my analytics. I don't want anyone else to see that.
Right.
And so I wouldn't have any, I mean, I could maybe do this once, but it wouldn't be an effective tool. And that's not how they presented it
Exactly.
when they came here. They said
It
everybody.
was be unlimited for
No,
any
yeah,
business
not
in
20.
in the city, so.
They said they would work with us to provide as many as we need.
Oh, okay.
But they did say, let's start with 25.
Okay.
And so,
So
I
it's not
think-
limited to 25.
not limited to
So
25.
I think that's key, because I wouldn't even
Right. I agree with
pay
you.
attention. I mean, I shouldn't say, I would be interested in learning about it, but I wouldn't be a tool I would use unless I could have an account. And,
Okay.
And I could maybe say if I'm not active, I could give it up. But
Right, well, that's what I was going to say, is you need to make sure that people are staying active with it, they're not just holding something onto it where it takes it, so you have yours, but I can't get it until someone dies or moves on or something kind of
no,
thing.
it has to be unlimited.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
they just started with 25.
Right, which was the conversation we had with them here.
But if they
It would
don't
be
use it,
unlimited
they lose
use.
it.
So
for
like
any
library
business.
ebooks, there are, concurrent checkouts. In other words, you can have 20 people check out an ebook, and then, even though everybody can log into the library, okay, and they do the same thing with software packages, which is you can have 20 people using it logged in at the same time, and until somebody logs out, somebody else can't log in. So the question is, which model do
Right.
we buy?
Right. But part of it is you need your own account, because when you're reading an ebook, and if you have one account and your husband starts reading it and it throws you off where you are on the page. So that doesn't work from my experience. So you need your own account
Oh, tell us more about
on
that,
the
Jeff.
ebook. You need your own account on the ebooks. So that's sort of what they sold to us. So we need to clarify that anyone who wants, any business that is a Palm Springs business is going to have access and be able to save their stuff
They did.
confidentially.
They confirmed it,
Okay.
yeah.
And only Palm Springs businesses,
Yes.
regardless of the organization, I would imagine, because that's who's paying for it.
Yes, we should limit it to Palm Springs businesses.
So can
Absolutely.
they
We
do it-
might want to allow people who are considering businesses
Business?
in Palm
Yeah.
Springs. So people who might not have an established
Right.
business but want to start one here, people who work in Palm Springs. I think we should keep it
Yeah, no.
open. But I think that sounds good, yeah.
So how is the training? Is it one-on-one or just?
No, I think they'll
online or-
train a group, they'll, what they talked about when we talked about it was, they'd sort of have a TV set and show people how to use it and then answer questions. But they also said they're available if individual people businesses have questions through the process. Yeah.
Is that also going to create another bit of infrastructure into Jay's group or whoever to now staff this and manage it and market it and et cetera? So is
Well,
the
I think
department
it's-
staffed up for that, or?
I mean, staffing it is really Buxton, right? As far as promoting it, it's Amy, to make sure we're getting it out, and the business organizations to promote it to their membership. I mean, that's how we're going to do it.
The trickle down, just trying to avoid the trickle
Yeah,
down.
it's trickling out, trickle out to the group.
I know when we had Buxton before, we had Kathy who was working one-on-one with businesses, right?
But the way that worked before was, we had access to it, and anyone who wanted the information could come in and access it, but it wasn't something that was out. So this is a little bit of a different model. So we just got to nail down how that works and the
Right.
training and that everyone, because would need to be able to give it to everybody equally,
Yes.
because it could be hundreds.
Could I suggest we start with a small pilot program of people who are very interested in doing this before we do a big bang and then have a lot of backlash? Which
I
could
think
take
we want-
just a few weeks.
Yeah.
It would just take a few weeks.
Paid Buxton a lot of money.
Right. I think we want to get this up and running, get people trained, And if they don't like it, they won't use it.
Right, but
That's
start
up to
with,
them.
start with a group, see how it goes before we make a major announcement.
I mean, we've already shared we're having this previously. I think we should actually do the trainings ASAP, given the cost of this, and start moving and letting, if people want to start using it, if they feel they're not technologically able, it's a pretty simple inter-user face from the little time I spent on it, they can ask questions. But I'd like to see it going.
Buxton was doing the training, right?
Yes.
Right.
They agreed they do the trainings.
Okay. So Jay, I'll turn it back over to you. There's some other on program updates, what you wanted to focus on, a couple of these?
Sure. Over the past few years, this subcommittee has done a lot of work in a lot of different areas. And so the list that looks like this that you have in your packages kind of describes the areas we've addressed with all of your help, of course, and where we're at with a lot of these. As you know, we did have a robust conversation on community workforce agreements and project labor agreements. And we see that those seem to fit larger publicly funded projects. So that's sort of on the radar. So when projects like that come through, we know to work out those type of benefits to the community. And the same for training and workforce development type of projects where businesses come into town or larger industries may need assistance. That could be set up through, fortunately, College of the Desert coming through and the programs that they're offering. And so helping businesses access those would be something that would improve the business climate here in town. We also revamped the facade improvement program, which is up and running. It's open to modification if that's what the subcommittee wishes, but it has been getting steady participation over the last couple of years.
And Jay, do you know how much is left of the budget currently if we had 250 appropriated?
Right, we have about 100,000 left
Okay.
of that 250 appropriation.
Can I ask something on that?
Sure.
Once we had talked about an option for somebody to apply.
I'm trying talking to your mic just so for the recording.
At one point, we had talked about an option for businesses to apply a second time if there was extra money. And is that something that could be considered after, even maybe after a few years or something? I mean, because the facades do go down.
And do we have a time frame when someone can reapply currently?
We do not, no.
I understood that you could never reapply. There was only one time per person.
Well, I tell you, the rule can be anything that the council wants it to be. So, I mean, it's a fair question.
Okay. So that's something we should think about. But I would think, whether it's every 5 years, whatever it may be, people should be able to reapply after some period of time. Especially after there's been enough outreach to get all the businesses to know about it, right? And so.
And the $100,000, that's for the fiscal year, or that's just the pot of money that we allocated until it's left?
The pot of money that's carried over from the last year.
Okay. And that's still it's at $5,000 matching, right? Or
Correct.
is it? Okay.
$5,000 matching is the limit. The project could be as high as possible, but the city will match up to $5,000.
Thank you.
A few of these other items, the hotel renovation project is up and running. We've had some conversations with a few businesses that are feeling like they're running into a buzzsaw with prevailing wages as far as the cost of hotel improvements go. But we continue to work with them to see if we can make that project work for them. We did get a proposal, a recommended proposal for a vacant storefront program, which was described as, I think, Airbnb meets, it's a temporary marketing program, it's hard to describe, and that individual would like to come in and give a presentation to the subcommittee at some point. She was not available for this meeting. Food deserts, we have sort of a two-pronged approach. It's a challenge to bring a grocery store into certain areas of the city where the demographics, the rooftop numbers don't support businesses just yet. So in the interim, we have Find Food Bank providing mobile food pantry to help get some healthier foods into the communities that need that. But the phase two is where Buxton comes in again. They will do retail matching, and we've asked them to focus on North Palm Springs, identify grocers that may fit that profile, and start building that relationship with them as the market picks up, as new homes are completed in North Palm Springs. Always trying to keep businesses in the loop with existing programs. What the state offers more so for manufacturing businesses are tax incentives where you can purchase equipment with a rebate of certain sales tax on that equipment. And there's something called California Competes, which provides tax credits to businesses if they remain in California, don't move out, or create new jobs. And it's pretty broad. I've seen accounting firms receive California Competes tax credits, as well as large manufacturing firms. So it's worth exploring.
So Jay, can we skip just on the next page, the uniquely Palm Springs, because I know Mary Jo has to go at 6:30. Mary Jo, would you come up? We have a seat here.
No, that's great, Mary Jo. How are you?
Hi, Mary Jo. You want to tell us a little bit about uniquely Palm Springs?
Sure. Sure. So most of you are familiar with the program. We started last February, just after some discussion with several people around the table here. We started as a very grassroots program. Most of it was some video and blogs that we did. So we did interviews with lots of the owners around town of their businesses. We wrote a corresponding blog to that, posted those on Visit Palm Springs, did a contest to drive people to the Uniquely Palm Springs website. And so did that for about 6 months. And then we were funded with some additional dollars to put together a larger program. So we have put that together, and that just started in December. So that's we did a 30-second video that's going to run both on Spectrum Cable and on Connect TV, which is streaming TV. And we're geo-targeting. There's actually 2 versions of the spot. They're slightly different. One will run in the Coachella Valley, and the other will run in what we call the donut, which is 30 to 60 miles around the Coachella Valley. We had a FAM last week where we had a couple of publications that publish from Riverside all the way down to Temecula. So we sort of got the west side of the donut on this media FAM. So we'll get some more media in, but they're publishing their first story tomorrow. And most of it, it's not about the Uniquely Palm Springs program. We kept making sure that they knew it's not about the program. It's about the uniqueness of the business, of the locally owned and operated businesses in Palm Springs. And in this new downtown setting, how different that is, and how different it is from, the people who haven't been here in 10 years from Palm Desert, or actually 2 of the 3 owners of these publications had not been here in several years. So they had not seen the new downtown. So that's our intent, to keep going with that. In addition, we're doing a digital marketing campaign as well. So we have a digital ad network that is the same thing, geo-targeting those areas to get the message out to go to Uniquely Palm Springs. We just had a new landing page launch yesterday, so it's more robust than the old page was. We're in Travel Host magazine. Once a month, we're doing a half page in Inland Empire magazine that has events that are in Palm Springs. Not so many to the big citywides, but the certified markets and a lot of the smaller events that are going on. Those are listed every month in Inland Empire. And I'm working with Palm Springs Life right now. They're supposed to get a proposal back to me this week on us doing a series of stories about the locally owned and operated businesses in Palm Springs, both print and digital. So I think that almost covers it. I didn't bring it with me, but that's
Yeah.
what we're working on right
So
now.
a couple things. One, the new spots, especially the Coachella Valley one. Can we start airing that on Channel 17 as well, so our residents can watch it? I think it's, especially now with the holiday season. What? Yeah, exactly.
We do need to show ads during the city
Yes.
council breaks.
When
I've
we have the
heard
most
that
people,
feedback
yes.
a lot, that people
Yeah.
are just sitting there with the music.
And this is a great thing to
I
show.
think it's better now, but.
The music improved, I heard that, but
Yeah.
we should be showing spots and ads during that time. I completely agree.
Yeah, so, but this we should just run, when nothing else is running on it, because it's really good right now, but constantly, I think it would be great. And if we can do that ad as a presentation on the 19th council meeting as well, and just maybe briefly, if you're available, Mary Jo?
Yeah, and we're putting together
okay.
just a really
Yeah.
short minute and a half
Yeah.
of what I just talked
Yeah,
about to
perfect.
show there.
And the whole idea for folks who haven't been here before was capturing the people. A lot of the tourism money tends to be focused on bringing people from other places who will stay for weekends or longer. And this is really focused on getting people who could come for a day, spend money, maybe they'll stay a night, but go to the stores, go to the restaurants, go to the bars, and experience, Palm Springs and bring them down here. And so we did research, which might be great. Maybe at the next meeting, we could share sort of what we learned about what they're looking for, what their impressions are, because I think the groups would be interested and could share that with their membership as well.
And the visitor study, or the study that went right to those areas that I'm talking about, that will wrap up by the end of the year. Bruce and a few other people were on that review committee. So my intent is to review that with the review committee right after the first of the year, and then we're moving our advisory committee meeting earlier to the middle of January so that we can have the consulting company come out and help make the presentation to everybody. Jeff, thank you, you're on it as well. And then, so we can show you as well, but you'll also be invited to that meeting. So if you'd like to come and see the full rollout of it from Schlau Consulting, you can do that as well. But that, that may change some of our messaging. We obviously started the program while the study's going on, so we may find some things that are surprising and help us to change the messaging, or maybe it reinforces it, we don't know. So we'll find that out. And there was one other thing I was going to say, but I forgot.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Before you go, so, I love the whole Uniquely Palm Springs. I think it's terrific. And I like the idea of promoting to within the region. So one of the questions I had, and this was I was going to get into the plans for the year, but since you're leaving, I'm going to say it, is that with some of these big events, like Festival of Lights, for example, it's not really all that great for a lot of businesses because their streets shut down and then no one can get in or no one wants to do parking. And I was just wondering, and I heard the same with Pride and other things, whether maybe as part of this there's like a shuttle from the airport or something like that during these big events that encourages people to come from the region. Because if I know people even in Palm Desert who are like, I'm not going to come during Pride, I can't park. And during Festival of Lights, we could actually make it as a whole shopping day, park at the airport, free shuttle, and come downtown and shop, because I think the street's closed at like noon, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
just
and one of the
idea.
things we've talked about is also doing, directing people next year on parking, right? The convention center parking lot, I don't think there's ever, and it's not really used during this, which is pretty close, but, if we did a shuttle to downtown, but things like that, to get people, right, to park and want to stay longer is the goal. And the traffic, I thought, would keep people wanting to stay longer, but, yeah. It is, yeah.
I know for years, we've talked about December and, just continuing to grow. And we had that discussion about the Festival of Lights weekend with the parades and seeing if we can do something, or whoever would do that on a Friday night, and people
Yeah.
could come out and judge the floats
Right.
and
Yeah.
do all that. So the conversation was a little bit later in the year, but maybe if there's some possibilities there
And
as
setting
well.
up a follow-up
Yeah.
on the event, but really think about how we make it a 3-day weekend, a lot more. And we had some great ideas that were shared, and so we just need to start that, in January. to have that meeting. Well, everything's fresh with folks on, but we talked about doing all the judging of the floats because it'd be really nice to announce the winners of the floats at the parade and have them, they get to move up the front and they're announced on TV. And it gives people an incentive to want to up their quality, which, by the way, was so much better this year as we took out a lot of the, we started earlier, we took out a lot of, no more entrants that are just a car with Walgreens lights around them. So the goal was to start really upping the quality now that it's televised, and I think that was much better this year. It was much more impressive. But we want to get that input early so we can really think about a Friday night judging thing. Is there a Saturday kind of, special shopping day, or Sunday, or like brainstorm some ideas that we can implement in partnership with the business organizations. And this one especially, Main Street and Arena, sort of right in the heart of it. So really think about how we can make this a weekend. And what a great way, if you're in Southern California, come to Palm Springs to kick off your weekend and get the hotels engaged as well, because it's not a busy, busy time for hotels. So there's an incentive for them as well. So we can talk to PS Resorts, but we'll set that up in January. To really, maybe that's just a separate meeting to brainstorm that, because it would take over the whole meeting if we did it here.
And then the last thing is that contest. We did update it. We made it sort of easier. And the intent of gathering those emails is for us to then have a filtered list where we can identify the zip codes where people are from, and we can start doing a newsletter that actually reaches out to them that's really more about uniquely Palm Springs, rather than the big destination that we've got these big events coming in 3 months and make sure you're booking your rooms, that we can be talking about a lot of the businesses and the smaller events that are going on within your own businesses rather than citywide stuff, and that it's directed right to that audience, that target audience. So that's what we're doing. I think we sent that out already. So if you can give us a donation, and because that's what we use for the prizes, as you guys have all done, so thank you. And so that's updated as well.
Great. And the only thing for Uniquely Palm Springs is, and we talked about this a little bit already, but sort of cluster marketing, right, of types of businesses, whether it's the Arenas District and LGBT businesses, whatever it may be, think about groups that we might want to cluster for sort of a different kind of promotion or acknowledgement. Certain types of retail, whether it's clothing, but just thinking, as we continue growing it, that was an issue that's come up a couple
we
times.
have the ability, and what we've done is filtered out, so it actually is called locally owned and operated. So if you go to Stay, Play, Dine, or Shop on Visit Palm Springs, there's a drop-down menu, and it filters out different things. So of course, in Stay, let's just take Stay. It has convention hotels, LGBT, boutique hotels. There's a filter called locally owned and operated on all 4 of those. So Uniquely Palm Springs pulls that one first. So when you go to the Uniquely Palm Springs website and you go to shop, every single one is locally owned and operated. The big boxes aren't included in that one. That's the whole intent of that microsite, to get you straight to those businesses. So even clustering them even a little bit more is possible, as like Dean, we were talking about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I was going
with
to
Arenas.
ask you guys, are these spots that are like 30 seconds? Or,
Yeah.
Okay, so is that something that can be pushed out to hotel organizations that they could actually embed in their Instagram profiles and stuff? So if you have, let's say, there's a hotel chain here that I know has 55,000 followers, and they could put it on their Instagram feed or their story feed, and it helps boost their reach, then you have some natural ways of getting that out there to beyond the city and beyond the borders.
Yeah, that's great. We'll send it out to everybody. We'll just send the link,
Really
and if
good
you
idea.
want it, just put it on your site. Yeah, it'd be great.
In the hotel rooms too. Channels that pushes all that.
Great.
That's great.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mary Jo.
Just due to time, is there anything else? I think we've covered most of the other stuff already earlier, but is there anything else you want to touch on from this list?
I think just adding, so other topics discussed, and this is for our purpose here as our subcommittee to think about what we've done for the last year, 2 years really, and what we're looking forward in the future. I think we have talked also, it says district signage. I'd just like to add kind of directional signs. So we had talked about, not just for Sunny Dunes, but for different business districts, having directional signs or monument signs. It's something we had discussed here at length. So I just want to clarify that. I had also raged. I had raged.
That was your weekend?
It's the opposite of my
No, I
weekend. I haven't had enough caffeine today. Large vacant commercial spaces in throughout Palm Springs, especially around the Curve in South Palm Springs. We have a lot of vacant old big restaurants that are just sitting there, a lot around tribal land. So we had raised that. I just like to have it in our other topics discussed. Ways that we could negotiate with the tribe or help support the land lease, or ways that we can make those operational businesses. And I think we had also talked a little bit about, or I would like to add, pop-up businesses and sort of permitting and the city process for allowing pop-ups. I know we had Pop-Up Palm Springs, which is really successful, but thinking we do have vacant storefronts, we do have events, trying to think about how we can be creative to allow businesses to be more mobile if they want to be. I think that's all I had to add here. I know we have not that much time left and sort of a lot to go over in terms of planning. I might propose that for planning for next year, we get the notes you mentioned.
Yeah, so do we have the notes from the town hall? I see it's on the agenda, but we don't have the notes, which makes it hard to review that.
We don't have them.
Okay, so why don't we move on to program planning for next year? We wanted to go over all those notes first, but we can talk more broadly, I think, on it. Issues we want to do. I mean, one thing I do want to touch on is, and Jeffrey mentioned it earlier, is overall, there was most of the business that I talked to thought Pride this year was the best it's ever been for them. There were some who felt differently. Some of the newer businesses who still aren't around the table, despite many invitations, don't want, it in front of their stores because they think it hurts their sales. And some of the bars felt with liquor sales on Palm Canyon, they didn't do as well in past years. I think most of the retail felt they did better overall from what I've heard. And I think we had a lot more people and it was a lot more fun. And I've talked to Ron, so I think two things, and several of us have emailed on this, but is in January to have that as one of our subjects, sort of Pride. He has some ideas, and also, if Main Street would be willing to host one and reach out to businesses as well, and maybe we do that first and get that input before we bring it here to really talk it through. Obviously, this year, city funding between the city itself and the city via PS Resorts, which is all city money, was probably double. It's the second most we give to any event entity. And that was necessary. And the liquor sales helped get much better entertainment, which brought more people. So we can't get rid of the liquor sales if we want to be able to do the stages on Palm Canyon. So figuring that out, Ron had some ideas, but I think doing a meeting with all the stakeholders, which you've offered, which I appreciate, would be great. Yeah.
So we're pushing that. Ron did do a meeting last January.
Right, I remember, and we talked about it here as well.
I think there was about 6 people there. So
Yeah.
the only thing I would suggest is that this year, if we do Main Street, or if the city, or to encourage Ron to do it, I think he was going to do it in February when he had all his numbers, but
Right.
also to get
It's fine.
the city to promote it.
Yes.
Main Street will do it, Arenas District,
We'll ask
hospitality.
we'll ask the chamber as well. I mean, everyone can promote it. We could put it out a lot more on social media and do a lot more to
But
promote
that way
it.
they can't come back and say,
Well, they can.
this was a surprise. Well, this is what they all claimed. It was
Right.
a surprise. They didn't know and they weren't involved. So
Right.
I think
Yeah.
it was terrific, and I thank the city for
Right,
doing it.
and they've all been invited to the town hall in this meeting as well, so. And we can continue to do that, but we sent, for the town hall, went to every licensed business in the city, so.
And Arenas District is obviously more than welcome and more than willing to host one
Yeah.
of those meetings too.
Yeah.
There, and to bring it in if you want to do multiple.
I think one big joint meeting, I think one big joint meeting we could promote with the business organizations would be ideal, and Pride, and we could both come.
Just David,
have to-
that was one of the specific issues, is that it served some businesses better than others.
Right.
And so I think having everybody together sort
Yeah.
of,
Sure.
you know.
Right. And the goal is to make it a win-win-win, so.
I know Ron's asking for feedback. He's been doing a survey,
Yeah.
Facebook survey or something survey. That's just a start, I think.
Yeah. And he wants to get all his numbers to see how he did, right? Because do you make enough that he doesn't need quite as many alcohol booths on Palm Canyon? You know, that's the kind of stuff, we need that data first. So if this is February, that's fine. Okay, great. So program planning for next year and calendar. Let's start with some key program issues that folks want us to work on. I mean, we got a bunch of ideas in town hall. One thing I remember from that very specifically, and we've talked about internally, is sort of customer service training at counters in the city. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. Customer service training with inspectors, it's sort of what Riverside talked about. We've talked about as customers first in all of those roles. And I think it may just take some training and for folks to remember, to remind them who the customer is, which is the public and the folks they deal with. So I think that was something that came out from that I think we definitely can work on.
So what I would like to do there is, we have certain types of training is it throughout the year. But what I think with this is what is the gap that we're experiencing? So what I would like to do is actually put a plan of customer service training together, department by department. Let's share it. Let's get updates to council at the council meeting, just so we can just start understanding what we're doing and what we need to do more of. Right. I think that would be a good place to start.
I mean, whenever I'm there, and people are really nice on the city staff, but it's a good training to do once a year for folks, and just a reminder of how that puts the city out front and people's willingness to want to do business here.
Understood.
Can I be so crazy as to say, I have dealt with the city for all these years, I have never been treated poorly.
Yeah.
I just want to say that.
Yes, and you've never treated anyone poorly either.
I have on occasion treated somebody in the planning department a little less than I should have, but they have been very
But that's probably
kind.
not poorly, though. Even less for you is probably not poorly. So maybe, are there specific things, people want us to work on? One thing we really need to talk about is we allocated a bunch of money for economic development, business retention, and I think that would be a good thing, maybe at our first meeting, to really talk about how we want to spend it. Meeting I had with some folks from the Main Street Board is, they want, I think we'll discuss that later, but $25,000 for the year to be able to do things to draw people to downtown. And in thinking about that, we should really think about how we allocate that to various business districts as well. I think that would be a really good thing for us to think about. And, think about the number of businesses, however we want to sort of figure out what's a fair thing for other business districts, but how we do that, because I do think that could be a useful use of some of that money, is to help those businesses do things that bring people, especially during slow times of the year, into those areas. I met with the Arenas District merchants today, and same issue, right? And how do we do things to help bring people there, especially during the slow times for businesses aren't always slow times, as you know from the pop-up during Coachella, for the hotels, right? And sometimes those are really hard times because everyone's going down. They're staying here, but they're not staying here, right? They're sleeping here. And so that's the kind of stuff I'd like us to really think through, maybe in January, is to spend some good time and people think ahead of time on how we can do things to help during those times especially, and as one source of using some of those funds.
I think that sounds great.
Yeah.
Putting that on the agenda and coming up with some staff recommendations there, and then community recommendations that we can all decide how to spend those funds.
Yeah.
Could I ask that we take a look at making a part of that, essentially post-tourist surveys, which we don't do, GPS CVB does not do. We do an intercept, sidewalk intercept every 5 years, which is only about people who are here right now. It's short, quick questions. We do nothing to understand, will people come back? What did they like? What did they not like? What would they like to know more about? And we also, by not doing it continuously, say 300 completed surveys every month, we don't know how our tourists change. And we know they change. We know we get certain types in the high season from Canada. We really have no customer data. And those are, the large spending customers we get to Palm Springs. Many other cities do this. We don't. And CVB, I talked to one of their consultants, and they said we should be doing that. So I'd like to make that a part of it.
Yeah, and that would make sense to the Bureau of Tourism, because, I can bring that to CVB as well, but for our Bureau of Tourism, which we fund,
Or we
that,
supplement
right.
their general study to concentrate on
Yeah.
Palm Springs somehow.
yeah. And I should find out, because the CVB was going to do Intercept for us during Pride to help figure that, some things out there. So I'll see if that's got done and is available before our meeting on that.
Let me add that Buxton will also be looking at visitor data, so the combined analysis of that, we could probably get an idea of where the visitors are coming from, what the trends are, and just so you know, the way they do that is cell phone data. So they know where visitors have come from, so they can identify the trends of who's coming from where. So it could be interesting to see that.
Yeah, between cell phone and their
Also.
access to Visa charges, and you can get a good picture.
So when will we have access to some of that information?
I was working actually with the tourism team to come up with the best data points to measure. And I think we've settled on the strategy that they want to use, which is identifying individuals, not specific attractions and events, but types of businesses. So it's a really good idea on their part. So we would model after their eat, shop, stay concept, the businesses they have in those categories, and measure tourism to those businesses.
So could you have that information for us to review at some point?
Yes. Probably beginning of the year.
That would be great.
Great, okay.
Could I, just a thought, something that has always been strange to me is that, I've been in business for 2.5 years, and everyone talks about seasons. Seasons November through May for Palm Desert and Indian Wells and Rancho Mirage. It seems like there's a huge population that we're missing that's really close that we can get business from. Is there a way to market down Valley Palm Springs? Like, the last 2 weeks have been horrible, and, for Palm Springs, and yet I'm sure Palm Desert's doing really well. Is there?
Yeah, so that's the whole thing we talked about. So we
Yeah.
did this study, which we'll get the results by the end of the year. And we're doing, that commercial is money we funded, that came out of discussions here, to run those ads and do that promotion in the valley and then the 60-mile radius in other areas for that exact reason. So it's to get people here. So we're on top
Cool.
of that one.
All right.
Great idea. But yeah, so that is happening. And also thinking about, events, which I shared a little bit, like looking at the slow weekends, both hotels and other businesses, and figuring out what events we could do then, right? We've had meetings with the CVB and our Bureau of Tourism and Ron about looking at LGBT games as an annual thing here, and starting it small. But when is the time we want to do that? When is it slow, right, for both the hotels and the businesses that we want to build traffic? And that's, I think, a key thing. PS Resorts, at those meetings, we stop things that want to come that are new in the middle of season are not getting funded right now as a new thing. They're really pushing, unless it's something really great and it's on a weekend, there's nothing, trying to push funding for new events to slower times. And I think that's, going to be key as well, because I think we want to fill those gaps. That's going to be really important. And we should really have a meeting where we're really talking about that. How we fill those gaps, brainstorming ideas. I think this is a great place to do that.
It's also not just, sometimes it's just extending things, to Sunday night or something.
Right.
Which is hard for any one business to do anything, but if there was a citywide effort, like Village Fest stretched it out to Thursday to do something.
Right.
Sunday night, that would stretch it out farther.
Right.
Would be ideal.
Right. If you think places in, Lake Arrowhead in particular, even though they do it in their season, but, they do a series of weekend concerts, right, that the business community supports, but, we think we have the new downtown park, right? Or if we did Sunday night concerts, right, we need to give people a reason to want to stay the extra night, and Village Fest has done that. Because, when people go on, they're researching, what days they're going to come somewhere, and they say, oh, there's this great thing on Thursday, I'll come a day early, and that's a great benefit. And I think Sunday's obviously the next logical day. Some more fun tea dances and concerts, but things on Sundays that make people want to stay that extra night.
So you talked earlier in the meeting about the one-stop shop for permitting. I'd like to see us have a one-stop shop of sorts for all of our analytics and research around tourism and hospitality and the economics and the customer experience. Because as an individual who's relatively engaged, I can't figure out in the city where all this information kind of resides. I know the Greater Palm Springs Convention and Visitors Bureau does research. I know this Palm Springs Tourism Bureau does some research. We're talking about Buxton. Can we get a place on the city website where all of this research and the outcomes that should be public are gathered together in one place, and then we can really figure out, oh, there's all this useful information, and we can put it to use, or, oh, here are some of the gaps that we'd like to fill in because we've looked at what's been gathered, aggregated, and we see X, Y, and Z is missing. I'd like us to see that, us focus on that this year.
CVB has a lot of their reports and data on the website, but having, adding the links to those in one page on our website that's easy to find for folks is a great idea.
And then see what we need.
Yeah.
We all have different ideas on that. We could take a couple of years to talk about that.
We could.
Thank you.
I just want to add one other quick one, too. So years ago, on our TOT forms, we used to fill in how many rooms we had rented each night of the month. And apparently several years ago, it kind of fell off the wayside and the city stopped enforcing it. And so although we can tell by a month what the TOT is, therefore a good representation of how many visitors we had, we can't tell where the weekends are. And if there's a way, especially, David, when we go back online with the new
So Bruce,
system-wide system.
how many rooms?
How many rooms were rented in a hotel each night of the month?
So then how do we know then how many rooms total
They just
TOT you
put it
owe?
down at the bottom. They just sum
Really?
it up. They say, we sold, 1,144 room nights, and that equated to this many dollars. And apparently just.
Well, my curiosity has
getting
peaked
enforced.
on that. So
What's that?
my curiosity has peaked.
Clearly.
So first of all, we've got, there has to be some daily data so we can match that to the, the easy answer to that is if it's not there, it should be, and let me get into that, but sounds like it's very interesting data that we should be having.
We should be having.
But when we look at,
but
I think,
so that would help though, with
but I
knowing
think
what weekends.
when we look at the PS Resorts Board meetings, they have it per day each year, right?
So that's going forward. That's the STR report. That's the STAR report.
But they have it for past.
Now we
years, so
couldn't
they know the difference.
Maybe partly is we can't provide that publicly,
Correct.
on
We
your
can aggregate it though.
proprietary, but we can aggregate it.
Talk about it offline.
Yeah.
but-
Okay.
But it was just
Okay.
interesting to see that we used to collect it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
now we don't have it aggregated and all.
Okay. Thanks, Bruce, on that one.
Yeah.
Is that just for vacation rentals or for hotels?
For hotels too.
It's for hotels and vacation rentals and,
Yeah.
and actually the ones for hotels, vacation rentals don't get the same one, so they don't have the request, just tell me how many nights you were booked, But it really would be helpful in this kind of understanding weekends.
Yeah, it would make sense for vacation rentals since we get the contracts sometimes for most people. It's a great way to make sure in an audit that they match.
Yeah.
So it would be helpful there. But the STAR report we have for years back too. So when I'm at meetings and we're looking at, this is how much this event helped versus the year before it didn't exist. So that does exist with the hotels.
I believe it was projected though, and we don't really know how did it actually perform. That's the difference. But we can double check.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I've seen it for years back, so.
It's also only about 50% of the physical hotels
Well, yeah,
representing
it's just.
about 60% of the rooms. So
yes.
it's missing.
No, it's missing a number, there's no doubt. But
Is that all too proprietary to ask if that's information that can get distributed to other businesses so that we can have plan for employees and stuff like that? So if we know if occupancy in town is at 90% this weekend, we know it might be a big weekend versus if it's at 70%.
Yeah, well, we would know, except it'd be after the fact. though. We don't know, yeah.
But we'll
we
know
would
for
just
the
give
year
you-
before.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
could
Right?
go year to year
So we can
then.
get, year
Yeah.
before, I mean, we can't, I think David's point is we can't do it for specific hotels, but we can do it cumulatively.
And we
Right
give
now
you year
for
to
the big
year by each
hotels.
weekend, so you could
But it'll
plan.
give you a sense.
Yeah.
Is there a place we can go see that?
Well, I think we can create a report on that, and then you can see it like, go back like 5 years, and then we can keep a running
Yeah. So I
of
think we can get that
occupancy
from-
per weekend.
From the STAR report, at
Yeah.
least for the,
But
Yeah.
at the very least, you could see how many room nights for conventions are booked, and
Right.
that's certainly helpful
Yes.
information
Right.
that we could make,
Yeah.
that you could get, that we get too. So, and that is big, and it's, some are proposed in the future,
Right.
but mostly it's good
Yeah,
information.
and they have that going out
so what you
a
think
year.
about, David, at least
Yeah.
getting that out to
Forward,
every
yeah.
one of the business groups in Palm Springs, so they can share it with their members.
Well,
as
no,
well.
That could be
it'd
really
be
helpful.
great.
I'll get that to you.
It'd be
Thank
great to have that here too. So I
Right.
think we need to be making data-driven decisions based on the data we have. So that's why I was asking, when can we discuss that here together so we can look at the trends and then
Yeah.
think through the future? I think that would be really helpful.
And to get down to the weekend level, I think would really help restaurants and some retail stores with understanding
Yeah.
their staffing requirements. And either save money or have enough customer service available when they get jammed.
So just to summarize that, because I think that's doable, we're going to have, the convention center has their bookings a year in advance almost, so you could have that data as often as you want, and then we'd have previous years, weekend by weekend, occupancy levels. So then you can kind of gauge, okay.
Yeah, it's available.
Yeah, okay.
Just gotta
We'll aggregate it.
out.
Yeah.
Jay's making those notes.
Yeah, so in the interest of time, since we have 9 minutes or so left, what I would propose, it sounds like what we'll do is we'll get the notes from the forum for the next meeting in January, and then we can all review those. And then we'll also have an agenda item for the budget and maybe for strategic goals for this upcoming year as a subcommittee, so we can plan our priorities. So if you all want to take this list, if you want to add to it this here about the Economic Development City Council Subcommittee, the projects that we've worked on, if you have things to add, if you have priorities that you want to recommend that we prioritize for next year, that would be really helpful. So I think the outstanding items are the dates, the meeting schedule. So you have, I think right here,
It's what it would have been, but we've said we wanted to change the dates, so it's not the same week as a council meeting, especially for folks. It's a lot for folks who come to both, and we have time ahead of it, before council meetings. So
That's important.
Is this a second Tuesday or a third Wednesday, this date there?
that's what we need to pick. Is that more helpful for you?
Currently, it's the second Tuesday, and now council meetings are the second Thursday.
So now we need to pick a different week.
What's going on before? maybe?
Yeah.
Can we confirm that it's you two are the subcommittee?
We can't do that until January 9th.
Can we
you
request
wanna
that you
be?
two are?
You can in
You can
public.
send council letters and in public as well, if you'd like.
Well, I'd like to request it here. This is public.
Thank you. Do Tuesdays still work for this group? I think we had gotten feedback that Tuesday was the best day. Okay, do you want to stick with Monday or Tuesday? I think I remember.
Tuesday. I'm already here for Village Fest, so.
Tuesday.
You can't?
Yeah, it's not good the same days. Every week? Or every week?
DVA, twice a month.
Right, which weeks?
It depends.
Oh, it depends?
There were-
Okay.
It's not second and fourth, it's based on holidays and.
Yeah, and that's the problem we'll have doing this on the fly.
Yeah.
But why don't we pick our meeting? We have a unique month next month because the first Tuesday is the second Thursday. So we don't have a council meeting on the 16th, so we could keep it on January 14th and then bring a proposed calendar. So why don't we do that?
That works for me.
Right?
Let's do
Because
that.
it won't cause that problem.
So So then
Yeah.
January 14th, we'll pick the schedule for the rest of the
Right,
year.
we'll map it out so people can get in their calendars and we can start publicizing the whole schedule.
That sounds good.
Okay, what else we got? Main Street Services Contract. Jay, do you want to just touch on that?
Yes, we have worked with Main Street for a number of years, providing assistance for administrative costs and promotions such as banners. And we got some ideas for expanding the scope of services and having that dovetail with some of the business promotion events. So we've gone back and forth a little bit about should it be one contract, multiple contracts? And most recently, we got a request from Main Street to have 2 separate contracts, one for continuing the work that's been done under the existing contract.
So, and that's the 12,500. Joe, I think could help with
It
the administrative.
is- It's
And-
12,000. It's $5,000 for the actual contract, $2,000 for reimbursement for the banner program, and $5,000 to print the map if we do
Right.
it, which we haven't.
Right.
So look at that
So that's
savings we got
budgeted.
for you
Yeah.
right there.
So that's budgeted. So that's easy. That's the renewal, and that's already budgeted.
Thank you.
And there was a second part?
The second part is to fund business promotions, such as more pop-up Palm Springs type of events. And I don't know if you want to elaborate.
So, last year we did the pop-up Palm Springs, we did 2 of them. And we also talked this year, we were hoping to do like a window contest program for Pride and also for the holidays. And a lot of these are just, they're not big budget events. And the idea was, the proposal was that we get $25,000 to use for these smaller ones, which could potentially build up into something bigger over time. But knowing that we had a certain amount of funds for at least 3 events during the year, we could then plan them a lot earlier, and then potentially grow them into something bigger. So, and most, we don't have a staff or anything, so time is sort of very important in knowing in advance that we would have a certain amount of money to do it, as opposed to having to do a whole proposal and come to you and wait for approval for each one.
Can we do this in January all together so we can think about funding as a whole group and not, okay, you won't
I'll
be
be
here.
here.
You'll give us a letter, email, I'm sure.
Yes.
That would be helpful so we can do it, just not
Thanks.
one-off, but
Right.
all together as a budget.
Yeah, and can we reach out, I mean, we have the Sunny Dunes merchants, there are other merchant groups.
Yeah.
To make sure all of them know about that meeting, and if we can put some thought in ahead of time to what kind of formula we figure out how to fairly distribute it. And the reimbursement process, I presume, would go through a city manager with some criteria, and then it could come on that next council meeting.
Yeah,
That'd be
and
great.
when we
As soon
did
as we
the
can.
pop-ups,
Right.
we included
Yeah.
any businesses.
Right.
I mean, so it's very hard for us as business owners ourselves to try to administer these ourselves when we have to be
Run
at
a business.
work.
Yeah,
Of course.
Planning in advance helpful.
Yeah.
okay,
Thank you, so we'll do that all together in
Thank you.
January.
great.
Then we have subcommittee staff member comments, announcements. Do you have any?
I think I've talked enough for the day.
Go ahead, and then you have public, and then we'll have public comment on non-agenda items.
Can't wait to hear what it is.
I have a request that I just want to flag. So last year for Coachella, Indio had the train stop in Indio and they built a platform. So I just wanted to flag, I talked to the Indio council members, but I would love to see that train also stop in Palm Springs so that visitors can stay in Palm Springs and attend the festival, which they still do, but we would have good transportation. So that's a huge ask, but I'd love for us to work
So,
on it
Christie,
together.
Tim Ellis had this all worked out to have the train come to Palm Springs. You know about this?
Yep.
Yeah, I
And
do.
Golden Voice? Okay, want to make sure you know, sorry.
Yeah.
And what was the reason they didn't? I thought they,
So Golden Voice said they would only allow the train to go to Indio because they wanted it to have all the campers who were going to use their campgrounds and did not want us stopping in Palm Springs and did not want, and then you couldn't keep the train in Indio versus they could have held it overnight on the side track in Palm Springs. I really felt sorry for him because he worked his tail off on this thing. And then Golden Voice kind of derailed him, even though they knew all along what he was working on.
So maybe now that we have,
Yeah.
we're working on the convention center, we have a better agreement, maybe the city can be influential here, as opposed to not being involved. I think that would be important.
Yeah, great.
Other comment, and then we'll move to public comments on non-agenda items. Joy?
Sorry, I just had a few things, and this was the right place. We really need new downtown banners.
You don't have to be sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. We really need new downtown banners, and we really need them on Indian as well. The ones on Indian are an irregular size. The hardware needs to be fixed, and if that was done, then the people that purchase the banners for their events would also be purchasing them on Indian. So what happens is when we have, like, let's say the film festival, all film festival is downtown, and then the only banners that say downtown are actually on Indian, and they literally are 10 years old, and they're sun-worn, they're torn, they're a mess. Okay, that was one thing. The other thing is that we need that to be upped there. And there's been 2 uptown banners since we got our last downtown banners approved. Also, regarding art fairs in the park, I understood it would come here before it went to for a contract to be signed. I don't know what the situation is. And the request from Main Street for 6 years is that the art fairs in the park maybe just wouldn't happen there on 3-day weekends. You know, we finally get busy, we finally get to see some stuff, and, you know, we already have 51 Village Fests a year, which, you know, can be a struggle sometimes for the brick and mortars, but then we have this art fair in the park, like on Thanksgiving weekend, on President's Day weekend, so the request there was just not on those weekends. And then the other thing that I had is in regards to retail cannabis taxes. So, you know, our sales tax is higher than our cities around here, Desert Hot Springs, Cathedral City, Palm Desert. Desert Hot Springs, Palm Desert are 7 3/4. Cathedral City is 8 3/4, and then we all have the 10%, and ours is 9 1/4, and then we all have the 10% city tax too. So what happens is the customers are literally paying more money here than they are in our neighboring cities. And even though I'm grateful for the reduction in the manufacturing and cultivation taxes, it does not ever trickle down to the customer. And whether they're patients or whether they're customers, doesn't matter anymore, it's recreational. So if we really want to make an impact in the cannabis business, the idea is really that the end user there, the customer, needs to have a little break in those taxes. That was it. Thanks. Thank you for listening.
Great.
I appreciate
And on
it.
the art fair, we knew we didn't have time to do it today, but we need.
Could I just note, so just because we knew we were going to be short today on time, so their contract is set for this season, January, and February, they already have that, so it's clearly for next year. You raise a very legitimate point, so it will be on the next agenda. We'll get direction. And just for background, we did have this discussion with the council a few years ago, and the council ended up continuing it, but I think it's ripe to have that discussion again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And obviously several years ago.
Yeah, it was several
Yes,
years
for
ago,
me.
over 4 years
And I
now,
think
5 years.
as part of that is permit fees to use our parks or public spaces for money-making ventures, even if it's a nonprofit per se. They then sell those booths for, each booth is what they pay for the whole use of it, and it makes it unavailable for our residents to enjoy a park for a whole weekend for $250.
She is not
So-
a nonprofit, sir.
Yeah, so I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, just wanna mention
But even
that,
in those
though.
cases, I mean,
Yeah.
with something like this, I think we really need to look at different rates based on the use when someone's selling those booths. I don't know that we even want to do it. I'm not saying that yet, I haven't decided, but I think it needs to be a broader than just a schedule, so I just want us to have a discussion of if it's a good idea. And if it is, what is an appropriate fee for someone taking over a park for a weekend that our residents could enjoy?
Well, I would agree, it becomes very, very problematic, especially, like, remember Valentine's Day?
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Crazy, yeah.
Question, and I don't know, this is off agenda item. Has there been or can there be consideration for something? We have a Arenas District and Main Street and all of these districts, and Matt Robinson is
His own
naming
district.
districts throughout the city. And has there been consideration of having a 1 PS for similar to our business districts, creating, formalizing, making sure that the business districts are represented. San Francisco, when I was a manager up there, we had the Council of District Merchants, so each one was represented. Very similar to 1PS, not that anyone needs any more work or infrastructure buildings or anything, Jay, but it could be an opportunity to then bring everything together and create that council to streamline some of this and really do something.
It's a great idea. Thank you.
Other comments?
Please.
One comment is, could we add back next year the sexual harassment training, which I think every business has to do next year?
Yeah, it got
Am I right?
postponed, obviously.
Just because it's the kind of thing that would have to be done on a regular basis throughout the year if there's a citywide training. I think it has to, by 2021, every employee at a company more than 5 people has to have it.
So I'm not sure what the question was there, that we were.
Yes, the issue is that we talked about this once, that since every business more than 5 employees has to have sexual harassment training for all of their employees, that if there was a cost-effective way for the city to do maybe quarterly trainings or something, as opposed to us having to pay for each employee to do it,
Right, was that the direction, wasn't?
Well, David, if we provide a facility, we've been in communication with Small Business Development Center,
they
who
would
can
do-
provide the training.
Oh, yeah, it's easy, we can do the facility, yeah. We can do.
That's great.
We just need to get it on the do it for next year.
Okay, so can you coordinate with them on
Yes.
the training? I mean, we got all kinds of facilities, the new training center at the police department, city hall. Yeah, we can accommodate that.
Yeah.
Great.
My second question is,
Okay,
can we get more signage for the public restroom and make sure they're actually upkeeping it?
Which.
And
the-
toilet
one-
paper.
The,
The
Yeah.
downtown one by Isabel, which.
Yeah, toilet paper is an
so
issue,
the
and
door signage is an improvement, did you see that?
it's much
Yeah,
better, and the
yeah.
glass door is much
Okay.
better,
So-
much
so people
but
can
there's-
You
see
still
it.
need something
Still-
from the street or elsewhere that says
Let
there is
people
a
know,
public
yeah.
restroom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a blade sign that's going up, but I hear something more on the perimeters.
Yeah. And 2 things I forgot. One is just, and I like the more directional free parking for the downtown garage. We might want it from other directions, though, because, so when I left, I had to go to something else, and so I left the Festival Lights Parade at 7, and there was a lot of spots in the downtown garage, right? People didn't even know about it. So just promotion, I talked to Amy about doing a lot more outreach.
And if I could just take a
It's
moment,
better
because
than it was.
this is an important issue, and this has really been a struggle for me. I mean, I have a lot of anxiety over it, because we got this great facility now.
There's signage.
And the signage inside and outside is not, now we've made some improvements. So this is why I was thinking what I want to do. I want a professional to come in and give us the best professional recommendation from signage coming into town, when you're in town, when you're at the deck. And then I'm going to get it out to the stakeholders, and then we'll get going, and then I need your feedback.
You got it.
Also, the striping, now we've improved some of the striping inside and the signage inside, but I still have a trouble that, where's the elevator? So I just want you to know, this is on the top of my mind, because I'm still frustrated with the end result.
Yeah.
So I need a professional to come in, assess it, give us a recommendation, and then we're going to do it.
Great. And it would also be helpful, I think, since you're doing that, to not just do the downtown garage, like the one behind
On Indiana.
Coffee North on Alejo. There are lots of garages
on
that
the
aren't
other
full,
side.
others that are full all the time.
Yeah.
And letting people know that where the free parking is. And public parking, and now that we have free, is really important, because public parking often means the public can park, but you pay. And that's what most people think, not that it's free.
Yeah.
And so can I start with Main Street as an organization on that? I mean,
Yeah.
working closely with you?
You
Sure.
got it.
Okay, and then whatever other organization, yes, Renas, okay,
Great.
thank you.
And the last thing I had was an announcement, which is related, but another subcommittee we're on. So the point-in-time homeless count is January 23rd. We need to really start publicizing that and getting it out, and we'll ask the business communities to get it out. It's incredibly rewarding and enlightening experience to do it.
It was.
But as I've shared, and people who haven't heard this, my first year, I think we had 17 people doing the count, which was pretty good, according to the county. Most cities don't do a lot of effort to have a high count, because you get headlines. We're now up to 75, and it does get us probably a higher number, but that higher number is why we're getting $10 million of funding. And so we want an accurate and as full account as we can get, and the more people who can help, the better. So it'd be great to get more folks who can participate. There's a short training. We do them here. We'll do one probably right before the next homeless task force in January as well. But I just want to start getting on people's calendar and just remind staff that we need to really start pushing that out again.
And what's the date on that is?
January 23rd, it's a Wednesday. And if you've done it already, you don't have to do it again. You just go online.
January 23rd is Thursday.
A Thursday? Okay, Thursday. January 23rd is what was on the website.
Hopefully not a console day, too.
You
Start
know,
that day at
no, it's
5.
actually, it's not, because
Okay.
we're doing the next week. Because it's the new, it's training for new council members from the League of Cities, the 4th.
Are there any other public comments before we adjourn? Do you have anything else, Mr.
No,
Mayor?
I was double checking I have the date right.
Do you have anything else, David or Jay? So then we'll adjourn. Thank you so much. So we will see you all back here January 14th for this subcommittee meeting. Thank you.